The American presidency, an office born from revolution, forged in the fires of independence, now arguably the most powerful position on earth. A single individual wielding immense influence. Over centuries, its occupant has commanded armies, directed military campaigns across continents, shaped laws that govern our society, and influenced the global economy, impacting billions of lives. This power can guide a nation through crisis, offering reassurance and charting a course to stability, or push the boundaries of law, testing the very limits of its authority. The presidency's story is one of evolving power, a constant negotiation between ambition and restraint. How it's defined, grown, and challenged by other branches of government and the will of the people. The Constitution grants specific authorities, the bedrock upon which the office is built. Commander-in-Chief with ultimate control over the armed forces, veto power, a check on the legislative branch, appointments, shaping the judiciary and the executive branch, but real power extends further, beyond the written word of the Constitution. The ability to persuade, to rally public opinion, set the agenda in national discourse and speak directly to the nation through modern media. Each president inherits and expands the office, leaving their own indelible mark on its character, especially in times of crisis. War, depression, social upheaval, and national tragedy. Americans look to the White House for decisive action, for leadership in times of uncertainty. Presidents often stretch their authority to meet the moment, sometimes invoking powers never explicitly granted. This raises a central question, one that has echoed through American history. How much power is too much? Where does legitimate authority end and overreach begin? Where's the line between decisive leadership and abuse of power, between protecting the nation and undermining its principles? The debate over presidential power has raged since the founding, a fundamental tension built into the very structure of our government, and is fiercer than ever today, in an era of rapid change and deep division. We've seen presidents pass landmark civil rights laws, expanding opportunity and justice for all, but also authorize secret surveillance and challenge democratic norms, raising profound questions about privacy and accountability. The presidency's power is a double-edged sword, capable of both great good and great harm. Understanding its history is crucial to understanding today's challenges and to safeguarding our democracy for future generations. The office is not static, it evolves with each leader, reflecting the changing needs and values of the nation. The power to inspire or to intimidate, to unite or to divide, ultimately rests in one person's hands. The stakes have never been higher. In an increasingly complex and interconnected world, tonight we explore the true meaning and the true limits of presidential power, examining its past, present, and future. What does it mean to lead a nation in the 21st century, with all the challenges and opportunities that entails? And what happens when that power is pushed to its limits, when the very foundations of our democracy are tested? The answers shape the future of American democracy and determine the kind of nation we will become. In 1787, the founders, a collection of brilliant and often clashing minds, gathered in Philadelphia. Their deliberations were constantly haunted by the specter of monarchy, the very system they had fought so hard to overthrow. The shadow of King George III loomed large in their collective memory. They desperately wanted to create a government strong enough to effectively function and address the needs of a growing nation, but they were equally determined to ensure that this new government would never become a threat to the very liberty they had so recently secured through revolution. The very idea of a single executive, a president, sparked intense debate and was deeply controversial. The fear was palpable that this president would inevitably morph into a king, wielding unchecked power and undermining the principles of self-governance. To prevent such tyranny, they meticulously built a system of checks and balances, carefully dividing power among different branches of government. Congress, the legislative branch, would control the laws and, crucially, the nation's purse strings, while the judiciary, through judicial review, would check the actions of the executive branch, ensuring that the president remained within constitutional bounds. The president's powers, as defined in the Constitution, were deliberately limited and carefully enumerated, leaving no room for ambiguity. The early presidents of the United States, keenly aware of the founders' concerns, largely respected these limits, and George Washington, in particular, set crucial precedents for the peaceful transfer of power and the limitations of executive authority. Thomas Jefferson, a staunch advocate for limited government, constantly warned of the dangers of centralized power and the potential for executive overreach. For the first several decades of the nation's history, Congress remained the dominant branch of government, with the presidency largely relegated to an administrative role. Yet, even within this framework of limited power, the seeds of a stronger executive were quietly being planted, as the president was, by constitutional design, the nation's single voice in foreign affairs and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The very nature of the office, with its inherent capacity for speed and decisiveness, inevitably gave it a distinct advantage over the often slow and deliberative processes of Congress. The founders' fears of executive overreach were indeed real and well-founded, but their carefully crafted system also contained the inherent potential for a concentration of power in the hands of the president. Over the course of American history, a series of crises from Civil War to economic depression would test and ultimately expand these carefully defined boundaries of presidential power. The presidency was fundamentally designed to serve the people, not to rule over them with an iron fist. But the very structure of the office, with its inherent flexibility, allowed for significant growth in power, particularly in moments of profound national need and existential threat. The delicate balance between individual liberty and governmental authority would be tested again and again throughout American history, a constant tension at the heart of our democratic experiment. The Civil War forced Abraham Lincoln to redefine presidential power. Facing national collapse, Lincoln claimed extraordinary authority to save the Union. He suspended habeas corpus, issued the Emancipation Proclamation, and blockaded southern ports, often without Congress. Critics called him a dictator, but Lincoln argued necessity. The nation's survival was at stake. He saw his oath as a command to act, even if it meant bending the rules. Lincoln's actions set a precedent. In crisis, presidents could claim vast powers for national security. The limited presidency of the founders was gone. A formidable office emerged. Lincoln is revered for saving the Union, but his legacy is complex. He showed that presidential power could expand dramatically in emergencies. Future presidents would invoke his example to justify their own actions. The office would never be the same. Franklin D. Roosevelt transformed the presidency during the Great Depression and World War II. FDR's New Deal expanded government and presidential power to address economic crisis. He spoke directly to Americans through fireside chats, building trust and rallying support. The presidency became a personal, powerful presence in daily life. New Deal programs embedded the federal government in American society, requiring a vast executive bureaucracy. FDR's power faced challenges: Supreme Court pushback, his failed court packing plan, but he persisted. By war's end, the president was expected to manage the economy and national welfare. FDR set the standard for the modern activist presidency. The office now shaped both domestic and global affairs. The president's reach and responsibility had grown permanently. Presidential power is a tool, a formidable instrument that shapes the course of a nation. It's a force that can be used to build or to break, to heal or to harm. Its impact depends entirely on the character, vision, and judgment of who wields it. The office itself is neutral. It's the person who occupies it that determines its ultimate effect. Bold executive action has often advanced justice, pushing the nation forward when progress seemed impossible. This is especially true when Congress was gridlocked, paralyzed by partisan divisions, and unable to act on critical issues. Eisenhower, for example, sent federal troops to enforce desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas, a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. Johnson skillfully pushed through landmark civil rights laws, fundamentally altering the landscape of American society. These were undeniably powerful and necessary uses of presidential authority to protect fundamental rights and ensure equality for all citizens. But the very same power, when unchecked and misused, has enabled terrible abuse and eroded public trust. Nixon's Watergate scandal, a dark chapter in American history, revealed a systematic and calculated misuse of government agencies to target political opponents and silence dissent. Throughout history, presidents have authorized secret operations, expanded surveillance programs, and even sanctioned torture, all justified in the name of national security. In the aftermath of 9/11, the Bush administration significantly expanded surveillance and interrogation powers, actions that sparked fierce debate about the balance between security and liberty. The line between legitimately protecting the nation from threats, both foreign and domestic, and abusing power to suppress dissent or consolidate control is often dangerously thin and easily crossed. Each president, regardless of their intentions, faces the constant temptation to overreach, to expand the boundaries of their authority. The history of the office is therefore filled with both moments of extraordinary progress and instances of profound peril. The enduring challenge for every president is to use power for the common good, while always respecting the limits placed upon it by the Constitution, ensuring it never becomes a tool for unchecked control. Ultimately, the presidency's legacy is rarely black and white. It's written in complex and nuanced shades of gray, and the consequences of its misuse, as history has repeatedly shown, can be profound and long-lasting, threatening the very foundations of our democracy. The founders built checks and balances to prevent abuse of power. Congress controls funding, investigates the executive, and can impeach a president. The judiciary can strike down unconstitutional actions. The Supreme Court blocked Truman's steel seizure and Trump's travel bans. The media exposes wrongdoing, shaping public opinion and creating political pressure. Watergate's exposure by journalists led to a president's resignation. Public opinion itself can constrain a president's agenda, but polarization has weakened these guardrails. Party loyalty often trumps oversight. Partisan media creates separate realities, making accountability harder. The system's strength depends on the willingness of people and institutions to uphold it. When those fail, the presidency's power can go unchecked. The guardrails are only as strong as our commitment to them. Donald Trump's presidency tested the limits of executive power. He challenged norms, viewing constraints as obstacles. Trump pressured the Department of Justice, seeking investigations into rivals and loyalty from officials. He used executive authority to bypass Congress, redirecting funds and issuing controversial pardons. His rhetoric targeted the press, intelligence community, and judiciary, undermining traditional checks. Inspectors general were dismissed, watchdogs sidelined. Each action tested a norm. Together, they challenged the system's foundations. Supporters saw disruption. Critics saw danger to democracy. The presidency's boundaries were pushed as never before. The system responded to Trump's challenges. Impeachment became the ultimate check. Trump was impeached twice, first for pressuring Ukraine for political gain, then for inciting the January 6th Capitol attack. The process exposed deep partisan divides. The Senate acquitted him both times. Investigations and court rulings blocked or modified controversial actions. The Mueller probe documented potential obstruction while Congress scrutinized policies and finances. The legal system and oversight mechanisms functioned but were strained. Trump's refusal to concede the 2020 election and efforts to overturn results tested the peaceful transfer of power. January 6th was a shocking culmination, exposing vulnerabilities in the system. The institutions held, but the experience revealed how far presidential power could be stretched. The nation was forced to confront the true limits of executive authority. Today, the debate over presidential power is more urgent than ever. The office has grown far beyond the founders' vision, with vast military, bureaucratic, and communication reach. Powers claimed in crisis are now permanent tools for any president. The Trump era revealed both the resilience and fragility of our guardrails. Congressional oversight is weakened by partisanship. Norms are not self-enforcing. Calls for reform grow, stronger ethics rules, clearer limits, and a more assertive Congress. The future depends on citizens' engagement and leaders' integrity. The central question remains, how do we ensure a president is strong enough to lead, but not so strong as to threaten liberty? Each generation must confront this challenge anew. The future of the republic depends on our answer.